Welcome to the Successful Encore Career Podcast, a podcast of employment for seniors. This episode is being brought to you by Nationwide Insurance, Central Ohio Area Agency on Aging, Age-Friendly Columbus and Franklin County, Thompson Hine, Bryce Smart, and Circle 270 Media. I'm Brett Johnson, longtime volunteer with Employment for Seniors, and with me with this episode, as with most, if not all episodes, is Dr. Carol Ventresca, the Executive Director of Employment for Seniors.
Hey, Brett. How are you today?
Doing great.
Good. We have a really exciting, fun show today, and so thank you to all of our listeners who are with us and ready to get some incredible information about our wonderful Columbus, our wonderful city. During 2019, we are celebrating 75 years of philanthropy in Central Ohio through the Columbus Foundation. We want to thank Dan Sharpe for joining us today. Dan is the Vice President for Community Research and Grant Management for the Foundation, and also with us is an intern from Ohio State University who is working with the foundation this summer, Holly Trimble. So thank you both for joining us today. We're excited to hear more about the foundation.
Thank you for having us.
So Dan, I've had the privilege of working with you in the foundation for many, many years. Your colleagues are incredible. And first, I want to give a shout out to all the wonderful work they do. I know it is not easy dealing with all of us on my side of the table, the nonprofit side. And but you and your colleagues are making our community a much better place to live. But the foundation is not just collecting money. And I think that's something that I really wanted to make sure that our listeners understand, that there's much more to philanthropy than just picking up a check. You have taken a strategic approach to engaging the community. I was interested when I was going through the website. The mission statement is to assist donors and others in strengthening and improving our community for the benefit of all its residents. Doesn't talk about money, it talks about strength, and that's what's so key. So would you mind giving us a little bit of an overview of your work at the foundation and how you became part of this amazing organization?
Well, first and foremost, thank you so much for having us and allowing the Columbus Foundation to be shared in greater depth and detail with all of your listeners. As the mission statement does share, there are some key components that we look at as primary audiences. The foundation wouldn't exist if it weren't for our donors, and the donors wouldn't desire to engage with a philanthropic entity if it weren't for all of our residents. And so the organization and the platform really is there in the middle, and we really think of ourselves as philanthropic advisors to help others with their philanthropy in the most effective way possible. And so, indeed, we are in our 75th year, which means when we were founded, there was conflict and war happening on both coasts, but there were some dedicated, insightful, and thoughtful and generous folks that were gathering in Columbus to think about the future of our community. And so over the years, we like to think that we have absolutely been steadfast in playing an important role in building community for all of our residents. And we think of the work that we do, certainly for the donors, related to money. Yes, we want to be good stewards of the dollars that they invest, but we really want to find ourselves in a position to share community knowledge and educate our donors.
Right.
They might come to the Columbus Foundation knowing that they want to support their house of worship, their alma mater, or a cause. But it's really up to us to also expand their horizons to learn more about broader community needs, maybe even neighborhood-specific needs in a part of town that has seen disinvestment, or a part of town that they've actually never even set foot in, learning the stories of the neighbors and the residents that live there, and how can we help those donors distribute and deploy their charitable dollars to the greatest effect for the community.
Wonderful. So how long have you been with the foundation?
I've been here 14 years.
Wow.
In several different departments. I feel very fortunate to have that tour of duty. Worked with our donor services and development team, worked in our communications and marketing team, was loaned out to a community-wide initiative to retain and engage college students and treat them almost like four-year tourists, and do a great job of engaging them in our neighborhoods, providing discounts to get them off campus to see the community as an extension of their collegiate experience, and then returned to the Columbus Foundation and have spent the majority of my time in the grant-making arena, which is the team that I feel so privileged to get to lead.
And
today.
we love you in that grant making arena too. So thank you. So Haley, before we keep going here on this conversation, tell us what you're doing at the foundation this summer.
Right. So I'm a communications and marketing intern at the Columbus Foundation, and I'll work just until September 6th is when it ends. So I'm working mainly on the Big Table, which is an event in August.
Wonderful.
We'll talk more about. So that's really exciting. I'm working a lot with that. And then along with that, along with the nonprofits and social, all of the digital stuff, a lot of different stuff that I'm getting a chance to do.
What a great experience
It's
for
been
you this
amazing.
summer.
And I'd say just getting to meet the people has been the best as well. They're all very passionate.
Well, and you're getting examples of top-notch work,
Right.
which in communications and marketing is
important.
critical. So wonderful.
Thank you.
Dan, nonprofit organizations play a huge role in providing services to communities that would likely not be able to be available without their efforts. For example, my point for seniors assists mature job seekers. It's not a group normally targeted in job search assistance. Could you give us a portrait of the nonprofit role in Central Ohio and the difference that we're making in addressing so many issues?
Yeah, so let me expound on that in two ways. One, we'll talk about specific numbers and statistics, and then we'll talk about the heart work, not just the hard work of the sector, but the heart work. So statistically, and this is coming from a report that came out in April of 2019 that was a collaboration with the Columbus Foundation, the Human Services Chamber of Franklin County, United Way, and the Greater Columbus Arts Council, doing a survey of the economic impact of nonprofit organizations in Franklin County. There are more than 7,000 nonprofit organizations in Franklin County. That number gets exponentially larger when you think of then the metropolitan statistical area and the contiguous counties. But for this sample set, let's focus on those 7,000 plus organizations. That's 12% of all of the nonprofit organizations in the state of Ohio are here in Franklin County. And 70% of those would be considered human services, 8% would be arts, and then a mixture of environment or education and everything in between. And so the nonprofit sector is the third largest employment sector behind retail and manufacturing nationally. So the nonprofit sector, from a statistical standpoint, if you think about payroll, jobs, who's employed, has a tremendous cascading impact on our community. And that doesn't even begin to scratch the surface of the heart work of these organizations. Many impassioned individuals are volunteering or on the payroll or are even wonderful recipients of programs and missions themselves. And I think our community is in a much better place and position because of the role of nonprofit organizations. The government can't catch everything. Private industry isn't going to cover everything. And so in many cases, there's the nonprofit organization that's that third thread interwoven to make the fabric of our community.
And we've always had the discussion about how much economic impact our little organization does have. And I think overall, you just explained it. Again, we're a part of that fabric, that we have an economic impact.
If we have over 225 clients for each of the past 4 years telling us they are now employed, it's taxes being paid, money spent at the grocery store, money at the department store, the movies, whatever. I mean, the economic impact is interesting. Sort of an aside, I love telling stories in these podcasts, so you have to bear with me. About 2 years ago, I received an email from a gentleman in Ireland who said, I've been watching your website. Tell me more about what exactly it is you do. So I'm giving him all this information. And he wrote back and he goes, I don't understand. You've only got 3 staff members. So I was trying to explain to him the role of volunteers, which outside of the United States is a whole different ballgame. And this went on for about a week, on and off. And at the very end, his only comment to me was, I just don't believe you can do what you do with just 3 people. It just didn't hit him. And I thought, we really are blessed with all of the work, effort, skills, experience, knowledge that our volunteers bring into that nonprofit realm. So heart work, right? Right.
And I would just add, as a different perspective, not coming from the nonprofit sector, just watching the news and being on social media, a lot of the times it just seems like everything is bad and there's not a lot of good people in the world. Since coming to the Columbus Foundation, I've learned so much more about all the different nonprofits in Columbus, all the different things they're doing, and it gives you a better perspective, and it really makes you feel like there are good people out there, and like we are going to get somewhere.
Exactly.
Yeah.
What a great message you can take back to all of
Right.
your peers on campus.
Yes.
So wonderful. So the next thing we wanted to talk a little bit about is just engaging donors. That's a long-term process. We know it is here from our perspective. I've done other fundraising with my alma mater, and it takes forever and ever and ever. The foundation staff provides local nonprofits with toolboxes of resources and instruments and guidance, and the word big has become kind of big at the foundation with implementation of several community-wide events that feature the work of nonprofits. So give us some highlights, and I really want to talk about the big table.
Absolutely. I love that you opened with the notion that working with donors is a long process. It really is and needs to be about relationships. It's not necessarily intended to be transactional, although now with crowdfunding and online giving, we're able to see it much more in a transactional format. But getting to know an organization, learning their mission, learning who they're serving, how they're serving them is indeed a journey. Much of the Columbus Foundation's philanthropic engagement with our donors does rely on estate giving, which really could be seen as the longest term relationship because it would mean that an individual might not necessarily be giving while they live, but they have made plans in their estate and in their bequest at the time that they pass away to have a generous charitable purpose. And that's a large component of how we engage with donors, as well as folks who have the ability to make gifts of varying sizes during their lifetime. And it's really a combination of both of those that make the Columbus Foundation a strong entity, not only today, but for tomorrow as well. And it's through some of those platforms that we've gained trust of donors and nonprofit leaders and have allowed us to pull off things such as the Big Table, the Big Give, and the Big Explore. And all of those are really intended to be community building moments to enrich the fabric of our community. You're bringing unity to the community and doing some important philanthropic giving. So let's break those down. The Big Explore was a day-long, last December 29th of 2018, a day-long event where the Columbus Foundation made available 7 cultural institutions free of charge and worked with transportation partner CODA to make the bus system free and accessible to anybody and everybody all day long. And in the course of the day, we saw 55,000 individuals participate in the transportation and admission to some of the organizations. And in many cases, they're organizations, if you're a really large family size and maybe a lower income level, would really be prohibitive from taking kiddos to COSI or something of the like. And so we're really, really pleased with the outcome of that and working with those partner organizations for the Big Explore. The Big Give has historically been a day of giving to rally charitable gifts to organizations. Most recently, the last Big Give was done in 2017, and it was a 26-hour period that netted more than $18 million for more than 900 organizations through 30,000 transactions. So that's big.
Very much so, and we appreciated being part of those, just one of those many, many hundreds of organizations. And can you compare that across the country with other one-day events that are going on?
So the Columbus Foundation really was the first in the country to do a day of giving. And when we started, we said, let's have a match pool. And we would match gifts that came in, and then it was exhausted in a mere amounts of minutes from the start because Columbus is such a generous community. So we've learned, the field has learned how to pivot and make tweaks. Now giving days are happening all across the country. But given our metro size and the time period, depending upon how you slice it, the Big Give through the Columbus Foundation still does land in the top tier of those giving rally days, which is very, very exciting.
And you do see a lot of them everywhere, and it really does reach out. The purpose is to help Central Ohio, but it literally reaches out across the world.
Yes.
Anyone can be donating to an agency in Central Ohio from anywhere in the world. So that's phenomenal.
And a couple big gives ago, we had participation from all 50 states, with some then transactions coming in internationally. In the 2017, we only had 49 states. I won't call out the one that had zero participation. But fun things to track. Not only do you want more money to go to organizations each time, and the Columbus Foundation doesn't keep a cent of what comes in through that day. So you want more money to go to more organizations, but we also look for ways to engage more people, and we've done that successfully in the last couple of years through promotional partners that you might show your giving receipt at Jenny's Splendid Ice Cream, and you'll receive some ice cream in return, discounts to Donato's Pizza. We've had other promotional partners in the past as well. So really trying to animate giving in many different ways.
Yes.
But you really asked about the big table.
Yes.
So I'll get to that.
Okay.
So the big table is intended to be a community conversation to bring people together, and that's pretty much it. There are no rules about how to do it.
We're really glad of that, too, since we're going to break your rules.
We want people to come together on a specific day. This year, it's going to be August 28th, so please mark the calendars. And we want people to participate as hosts and invite folks to their table, or we want people to go to a table with complete strangers. And there will be a number of public gathering places, like partners like the Columbus Metropolitan Library and others that are still in formation, that you could go on August 28th and just sit down with complete strangers and find out likely that you have more in common than you have in terms of differences. We've also seen, because we don't script it, we don't structure it, we've seen groups that have chosen to continue on a frequency of meeting. We've seen groups that have then spun off to do service projects and to engage in their community in more meaningful ways. And most recently, just within the last couple of months, Community Development for All People closed down Parsons Avenue with some partners and had something called Avenue for All. And they credit that notion of a moment of community with activities and things to engage in as a catalyzed out of the big table.
Well, so Employment for Seniors never does anything the way people expect us to do it, just because. So a month or so, 6 weeks ago, I emailed Dan and said, does the big table really have to be the 28th? Because we have a big event ourselves on the 29th, our Senior Career Expo, which we expect 70 plus employers and 500 or so participants. Part of that, my wanting to do a big table at our event, is that we're also working with age-friendly Columbus and Franklin County to look at age-friendly employers. And we're currently surveying them. So we're going to use our big table discussion to look at age-friendly employment and give them some information about our the statistics, the data we've received thus far, but also just to get ideas. How can we help employers have age-friendly hiring opportunities? And so that's so we're bending a lot of rules.
We love it.
But we're going to have it. So we just want to make sure you count us, even if we're a day late and $1 short.
Yes.
Okay.
So anybody that participates in the big table, there is a web page on the Columbus Foundation's website that has more information that will allow you to navigate to some of those public ones, or even identify yourself as a host. An important component is a survey mechanism that we do want to know what topics were talked about, where it was held, just general non-specific identifying characteristics, but it really helps us get a picture of the moment of community in that day through the big table.
Right.
So that's a large amount of what Haley is working on through her time at the Columbus Foundation.
So, okay, good, Haley. So you're going to remember to count us.
Yes, we will.
Good. I had to get that shameless plug in here for the Expo too.
Sure, exactly. Well, I feel very fortunate. I've been a longtime member of the EFS Board of Trustees. Surprisingly, I wasn't fired a few times just for the bonehead things that I've done, but I think that's
No, you bring all these fun toys with you.
Right,
Are you
there
kidding?
you go.
We can't fire you.
So, I've seen firsthand the value of board members that they bring to a nonprofit. I mean, we've gone through our share of good and bad, but I think it's the fit that you've got to find you're the right board you want to be a part of. Well, the foundation encourages individuals to become involved in nonprofits as board members, volunteers, donors. How can individuals in our community enhance the work of nonprofits through volunteering and support those that are in need?
I think the most important thing for an individual to think about is the value that they can bring to an organization. It's not just a checkbook, but it's themselves and it's their networks. And so there's some phrases that are catchy. You can give of your time, your talent, and your treasure. So certainly your time as a volunteer, your talent if you have a specific skill set, maybe you're wonderful in the audio realm or you're a CFO by training, and then certainly your treasure of writing check. There's also similarly wisdom, work, and wealth. So bringing the work ethic, bringing your wisdom to the board to help with the strategy, and then again, wealth, writing checks to the organizations. And for nonprofit leaders, it's really important to think about surrounding yourselves with somebody that could be seen as a doer, a donor, or a door opener. So again, thinking about how your network can be of value to what you bring to an organization in addition to your dollars as a donor, and then the sweat equity, elbow grease that you would bring as a doer. And so individuals are probably best suited to find an organization that has the greatest need for their skill set, whether it's any one of those, and know what you're most interested in bringing to the table, and perhaps starting small, maybe just giving of your time as a volunteer to, again, it goes back to relationships, figure out what the organization is all about before you open your pocketbook. Right. Make sure that they're going to have a good use of your funds, they take very seriously the donor's intent, and that it's a meaningful mission for the community.
I think we've been really lucky. I think the Columbus market is full of people that want to donate their time and all the other things that we just mentioned too. I mean, we are one of the smaller nonprofits in the market, but we have gotten some great talent on the board as volunteers, donors, partners and such. So I think we're blessed in this market to have a lot of good talent that want to do good things.
Well, and you were with us this year at our Legacy Awards program. It's our premier fundraising event, and we often use that to showcase what we do to potential new board members. And I have to say, I've had more than one time someone would look at me and go, "You guys pulled this off?" And yeah, we did. A little tiny organization. We can really do this because we have all this talent supporting us through the process and our board members. So a shout out to our board members too today.
And I was at that event, I was struck by the longevity of some of your board members, but specifically with your award recipient, the depth in which he has brought his skill set and talent over a number of years to the organization. Yes. And it's always interesting to see at the foundation, when we get to look at so many organizations, you can see in their history or their trajectory sprints or lulls in the mission delivery, and oftentimes those sprints coincide with a well-orchestrated, well-led board with great cohesiveness, and the lulls to be a time kind of drifting at sea, and largely because the board is disengaged, they're not the right people, there's some personality conflicts perhaps at the board, the executive director isn't meshing with the board, and so the Columbus Foundation works really hard to even try to provide continuing education and learning opportunities, and conferences for organizations to learn how to best harness their potential and who to have on the right seat on that proverbial bus to get you to your destination.
Well, and we, our current board president, Bill Lafayette, and I participated last year in the board series, and which was incredible information. I can remember when I began 10 years ago that your colleague Stephen Moore came and talked to us about fundraising, because that was a critical thing that we had never been able to figure out how to do, and could we do it. And so in that 10 years, we now have Legacy that brings in a significant amount of our budget.
I got outbid on some auction items, too.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Especially those OSU football tickets. So, gosh, all right. So, one of the things that it's interesting conversations that we have with clients. Even though we tell people that we're a nonprofit when they come in the door, they still think that we're an arm of the government. They have no clue what that means to be a nonprofit. It's just not been part of their world. Many also are concerned because they've never had to ask for help before. And so in some ways we are less threatening for them to come in to ask for help because we're not collecting their social security numbers. We're not worried about income eligibility. We're really here just to connect them to employers and help them with a resume and interviewing. So it's much more of a training program as opposed to a handout. And we also believe that what we're trying to do is help people learn to fish, not give them a fish. So it works really well. But in those discussions, I think that what people don't realize is how much we do. Now, you're seeing it at a much larger place in our community. So you've already done a little bit in telling us, what's going on in terms of dollars and numbers. Can you give us some really interesting examples of the work you're seeing happening in Columbus with the other nonprofits?
Yeah, Columbus is a big city, and I think folks have been here for maybe the majority of their life and are comfortable with their routine. They may not even be traveling to the other side of our community to see the built environment changing or even seeing the faces of our neighbors changing. We have a tremendous amount of new Americans and even immigrants and refugees, and I use each one of those terms deliberately differently because they do mean different things. The refugee is a United Nations status. Immigration might be somebody coming by choice, and new Americans might be a title that somebody ascribes to if they've gone through maybe a naturalization process or are now a multi-generational. So they're very, very different and very important distinctions. But Columbus now has the nation's largest Bhutanese and Nepali community living here, a growing and second largest Somali population. And it's been said that the communities of Hilliard, Dublin, and Westerville, the populations of those three entities equate the foreign-born population in central Ohio. So if you think of the 270 ring and picture those communities and all of those houses, well, neighbors are living amongst us that equal that population that happen to be foreign-born. And so Columbus is a big and global city. So we're seeing organizations serving those individuals. We're also seeing what people would kind of think of as big city problems. Right? We have a tremendous opiate addiction and epidemic problem that has been in our community for generations and is now, I think, getting more attention, unfortunately, just because it is hitting suburban communities or communities that have a little bit more access to opportunity or wealth, but it's been plaguing all of our communities for generations. And so nonprofit organizations are trying to find ways to align their mission or what they're already doing to serve people who are impacted by addiction and opiates. We have a large population of youth who are experiencing homelessness. And I think most people might think of a homeless veteran at the end of a expressway off-ramp. That's just a face and an individual that's experiencing homelessness. But as a community, we have effectively ended veterans' homelessness, meaning we have resources and pathways to get any veteran who wants shelter off of the street and into shelter. And that is a tremendous success for any community and certainly something we should be proud of. But there's a large number of youth. It's likely underreported, but the number is about, I think, 3,000 youth estimated that are homeless. Many of them have been involved in the juvenile justice system, had adverse experiences in the foster care system. They hit 18 and what's called aging out, and they don't have a support network, and so they create their own support network and family network and friends, but they're living on the street or unstably housed from couches to cars and everything in between. So that's certainly a big city problem. And I think of an emerging challenge largely because of a looming deadline of July 2020 that early education centers have to have a certain rating and credentialing. That's not only a problem if you're a single mother trying to go to work and need a place to send your child. It's also a problem if that's where you work, that your center might close. So it's a workforce issue, which
Right.
is certainly important to EFS, but it's also a challenge for the future of our community. If we don't have quality early learning for our little ones who inevitably will grow up and be part of hopefully our workforce and hopefully part of our vibrant and flourishing community, if we don't take care of them even before kindergarten, the research shows that they are just set so far back, and there's no reason that anybody's zip code that they're born into should really define their trajectory in life.
Right.
But those would be big city problems, if you will, that many organizations are addressing, and the Columbus Foundation has had strategic investments, what we call critical need alerts, lifting up, again, from an education and community knowledge perspective, lifting those up to our donors with a call to action for them to deploy their charitable dollars to address those challenges.
I can remember when I was at Ohio State and Dr. Gee talking about the Wineland Park community and the amount of effort that had gone into that to turn around a community that really had no place to. I mean, it couldn't have gone any farther down, I don't think. But how our community gets together and all of the bits and pieces work together to make it happen. So I think we could probably fix all of those problems.
Yes, we could do an entire podcast on Wineland Park and the challenges and successes in that, and what is, just briefly here and now, what is such a success out of that work. It has been over many years and even spanned multiple university
Right.
Leadership changes, but the collaboration of public and private and foundation and philanthropic and just stacking hands to focus on that 40 square block geography and make sure that folks can remain housed there at a variety of income levels. There's some of the state's highest concentration of Section 8 housing that's still in the neighborhood and will deliberately remain in the neighborhood. And around the corner, there's homes selling on market rate for more than $300,000.
Right,
And in
right.
between, you have habitat houses, tax credit houses that are income limited. It's a beautiful melting pot of demographics, of individuals of all ages, and in your marketplace, it's one of the village networks at
Right.
Home by High, age-friendly Columbus
Sure.
partner. Covers Wineland Park, and then in that same neighborhood, you have a tremendous amount of Ohio State University students,
Right.
in addition to folks who have been living there for generations.
Well, and I'm a child of Linden, so I'm excited to see everything that's going to happen there. So there you go. Wonderful.
And we encourage our clients to, build their network, increase their skills, and find new employment opportunities through volunteering at a nonprofit. We've done, I'm sure, a couple of podcasts touching upon that point as well, too. And when you mentioned earlier how big the nonprofit sector is as an employer, so you have any examples of opportunities the foundation has supported to enhance not only volunteering but employment?
That's one thing that I love about your mission, is that you really are, Carol, to your point, it's not a handout. You are training and teaching and connecting somebody to a pathway to improve their life, which is fantastic. And so employment, by many measures, is the best way to do that. And upskilling is a phrase certainly that's in the marketplace. You might have certain skill sets, but you might need to pivot and learn new ones, so upskill. The Columbus Foundation is fortunate, through our donors' generosity, to be able to invest in some employment and workforce development efforts. And they do run kind of the spectrum. If you just want to focus on age, to start for the conversation, I would point to our summer fellowship program, which is a 10-week paid experience for a college student, recent graduate, or graduate student to go to an organization that we have vetted and selected, and we know that it's meaningful work for this individual and not just fetching coffee or filing papers, but work that the organization would not get to do otherwise if they didn't have this infusion of talent. So we're really trying to be a catalyst for folks like Haley at the beginning of their career journey, or trying to figure out what that journey might look like, investing in nonprofit organizations. So we've been doing that for more than 5 years. It's a tremendous investment on our part, but tremendous talent being deployed into the community. And then Along that continuum would be credentialing. And so I think of Perscalis, which is a technology-oriented nonprofit organization that works with employer partners who are looking for in-demand tech talent. And so Perscalis' curriculum will provide a certain certification, and all along they're in touch with those employers to make sure that they are delivering a curriculum that will be the likely on-ramp to a job at that employer, and they have tremendous success rates and percentages of those that are employed at graduation, which is fantastic. And then I think of Columbus Works, which is working with really hard to employ individuals, possibly people who have never had a job before, re-entering society after a stint of incarceration, maybe have been suffering with addiction much of their life, or never have even had financial management skills because they've never had a steady paycheck. So working with really hard to employ people, put them through a tremendously intensive programming period, and then only when that person shows readiness does Columbus Works make a connection to an employer, and then they have job coaches that in some cases are even on the job with the individual to make sure that they are doing indeed what they're supposed to do, learning the right skills, and have the ability to, I'll say, fail without it being an immediate termination or a giant whoops. But there's certainly an attrition rate there, and that program isn't for everybody. And I think the word on the street would be, if you are ready to improve your life and have had a turbulent past, Columbus Works is the best partner for you. But they're also no nonsense. If you're not ready, they're not ready for you. And then for the more mature worker, you have a wonderful organization, Employment for Seniors. I think you might have heard of them.
Yes.
Doing
and we even have fun every day, too.
Even better.
Even better.
Right. And so that would be kind of a continuum of the importance of workforce development, but also how the Columbus Foundation, in a variety of ways, through the generosity of donors, has been able to invest in organizations, to invest in people, to invest in themselves, so forth.
Fabulous.
I remember just when I started, I believe it was a critical need alert for a nonprofit supporting breast cancer, and they had a critical need alert for paying a driver. They needed another driver to drive a woman to chemo. So that was
the Better Together platform.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, that's what it was.
Yep.
Which was really neat too. Like we're giving money to someone to drive someone else to the things. You're really helping two different people.
Exactly. Wonderful. Wonderful. So one of my goals today was to make sure that listeners see the value of nonprofits and all of the wonderful work that we do. And I always tell clients, our services are free to you. That does not mean they are free. There are dollars behind all of this, and it's important that each of us step up as we can. Time, talent, treasure. Some words of wisdom from you and from the foundation to our listeners about how they can engage, how they can become an answer to the community needs as opposed to the person on the edge just complaining.
Absolutely. I love the phrase, complaining is like a rocking chair. It gives you something to do, but it gets you nowhere.
Exactly.
So we would love to see people off of the sideline and on the playing field. And I would argue that no matter an individual's physical ability, income level, however you slice and dice or would be able to come up with excuses, well, I can't do that. Would love to debunk that, because there are so many ways for individuals to engage in our community, even just beyond the time, talent, treasure mantra. And it does take all of us to be in community, and we have to be deliberate about improving our community. And so my default answer would be yes, engage. And two, the default answer would be give. Mm-hmm. And whatever that looks like, right? There's great stories. We even have a fund that we're able to help a animal shelter in Delaware County because a postal carrier left his estate to the Columbus Foundation. So, love the notion of mailman and dogs, and right, and the storied history there. But the estate giving that he was able to do allows him to engage. And so maybe that wasn't during his lifetime, but it was something that he had the foresight to be thinking of, and thinking of his community and the four-legged community long after he was gone. So give and yes.
Yes, and we get checks of a lot of different sizes. The most important check I get is from the client who found a job, and it may just be a few dollars, but those are the significant dollars that keep us going every day. Because the giving is not just the money and the resources to let us do our job; it's the support and tap on the shoulder, telling us we're doing a good job to give us the ability to go another day, because there are days that can be tough in a nonprofit, and the issues can be staggering. But having those donors and that support is really, really important. And in terms of board members, the foundation does a lot of training to help board members, and being a board member is a great way to give. I think our philosophy has always been to make sure every board member doesn't just understand what we do, but also is comfortable feeling that they're part of it, and that whatever they can provide us, whatever knowledge or skills or information they can provide us, is critical. Every little tiny bit is what makes the whole much better.
And recognizing that they have limited time to be able to even come to the office and kind of shadow. We know they can't. I mean, that was a big uphill struggle when I first started too. It's like, I just don't have the time to be able to. I'm trying to absorb as much as I can in a board meeting. And we actually turned a lot of that into like a little business card, that if you're in an elevator and you're talking to somebody that's like, well, I'm on the board of Employment for Seniors, and it's like, well, what do you do? Well, there are two sides to it. It's like, here's a business card. Here's what we do. And it just flips open and kind of gives a little cheat sheet of what we do. But it was well received, and we ran out. So I think it was used very well. So.
We had to send so many of them to the gentleman in Ireland.
Right.
Exactly.
What you were doing.
Exactly. Yeah.
He just doesn't get it. I felt badly for him. I couldn't get him to keep emailing with me, but
So on the flip side, I'm going to assume you're not tapped out to help any more nonprofits. They can give you a call if they need some help. Talk about also some resources and information that you can provide, a nonprofit that's never really thought about. I didn't know they were a resource.
Yes. So, and it isn't just about the dollars. I would lift up our Giving Store. It's the online platform where more than 1,000 nonprofit organizations have a presence that gets them in front of members of the public and donors, and Haley mentioned Better Together. And so that is a fundraising opportunity in the digital space to get crowdfunding, to get a lot of medium-sized to small-sized gifts to get you to your goal. And we're communicating that to our donors. The organizations are communicating Better Together to their audience. And truly, by nature of the co-funding, we are better together by meeting those goals. But within the directory listing of the Giving Store, that's kind of also the entree to some of those continuing education conferences and trainings that Carol mentioned, right? We need a name and a number to contact to say, hey, we're doing this training, come. And the best way to do that is with the 501c3 registering in the Giving Store with a directory listing. The Columbus Foundation also offers endowment services to nonprofit organizations. So we can help their board and their executives navigate the conversation about thinking long-term about the organization, not just the immediate cash flow, but some donors are really motivated by giving to an endowment to allow an organization to have some stability over the long term. That's a service that we provide as well. And then the nonprofit forums would be an additional training, and that really runs the full gamut from information technology, marketing, succession planning, board training. And so I guess the best place for an organization to start would be our every other month grant information sessions, which the upcoming dates are available on columbusfoundation.org. That's a grant information session. And you'll get to meet the grant making team, ask questions, tell us about your mission, kind of what nut you're trying to crack in the community, and then we would be able to help connect some dots to existing funding opportunities that the organization might be able to apply for. We're not in a position to help organizations write their grants, and we're not in a position to help organizations become a 501c3. And there's a lot of impassioned individuals that want to do that. In fact, I would even dissuade many people from becoming a nonprofit organization. 7,000 just in Franklin County. Many of them are doing similar missions, and we have a giant challenge with redundancy and even confusion in the marketplace. And so we're not in the position to help people create that, but we can, if somebody has an idea, we can be helpful in navigating them to an existing organization that might be able to serve as a fiscal sponsor for a short-term special project, or might be in a position, if it's a good enough idea meeting a great enough need in the community, absorb it into their own,
Right.
own mission.
We've had that same conversation with the Better Business Bureau. They came in and talked to us about the charitable standards of excellence, and that is one thing that we do have an abundance of in Columbus, and that is that people seem to think that creating a nonprofit or a foundation is the only way to give honor to something, and we really probably have pretty much maxed on almost every issue possible in our nonprofits, and they're doing a wonderful job. So I encourage people to contact the nonprofits that do exist before they take the jump, because it's not easy. And doing a nonprofit isn't something you do today or this month, and then suddenly you think it's just going to roll on its own, because that's not going to happen. It's like a child, has to be fostered every day and nurtured every day. So I would encourage any nonprofit to call the foundation with their questions. We have a long-term 40-some year connection with the Columbus Foundation, and I have lots of questions, and I know I can call somebody and get those answers. So thank you. Again, a shout out to you and your colleagues. Happy 75th anniversary.
Thank you.
Please give Doug our best, and that we love working with you. And Haley, thanks for joining us today. How exciting having an OSU intern with us. This is very cool from my alma mater. Thank you, Dan.
Thank
very
you.
much.
And we look forward to seeing everybody at the upcoming big table.
Yes,
August
on the
28th.
29th. Yes, no. It's the 28th is the official date, but if you're an Employment for Seniors Career Expo employer, you can be a day late with me on the 29th.
Or do it twice. Do it on the 28th at one of the
Absolutely.
tables, and you've had
Absolutely.
so much fun. Go to the Career
we're
Expo.
gonna have snacks. So that's my incentive. Thank you again. Have a great day.